Claude Debussy was one of the greatest composers of the late 19th and early 20th centuries, often cited as a musical impressionist, the sonic equivalent of Claude Monet in painting. Although Debussy himself disliked the moniker, both he and Monet did capture a fleeting sense of atmosphere, an everlasting taste of the final moments of Europe's Belle Époque, before the ravages of the 20th century destroyed it forever. Like many musicians of his generation, Debussy was inspired by extra-musical stimuli, paintings, poems, and ideas. He rarely wrote absolute music, that is, music that's just music like a Beethoven symphony, instead more often giving his pieces descriptive, evocative titles. A nocturne is simply a piece about the night, or something to be played at nighttime. The term was first used by the Irish composer and pianist John Field in his piano works from the early 1800s. In the 1870s, Debussy saw an exhibition of paintings by the American artist James McNeill Whistler. He was fascinated with Whistler's depictions of light and shade, calling him the greatest creator of mystery in art. In the three nocturnes, Debussy set out to achieve a similar mystery in music. He described the music thus: "The title Nocturnes is to be interpreted here in a general and decorative sense. All the various impressions and the special effects of light that the word suggests. The first movement, nuages, or clouds, renders the immutable aspect of the sky, and the slow, solemn motion of the clouds fading away in grey tones lightly tinged with white. Fête, or festivals, gives us the vibrating, dancing rhythms of the atmosphere with sudden flashes of light. There is also the episode of the procession, a dazzling, fantastic vision, which passes through the festive scene and becomes merged in it. But the background remains resistantly the same, the festival with its blending of music and luminous dust participating in the cosmic rhythm. Sirens, the third and final movement, depicts the sea and its countless rhythms, and presently among the waves, silvered by the moonlight, is heard the mysterious song of sirens as they laugh and pass on." The first nocturne, Nuages or Clouds, has two themes, the first slow and chordal, the second airier and luminous, painting the endlessly changing shades of the sky in subtle musical textures. The second, Fête, is full of the joy of a town festival of the kind Debussy loved as a child, growing up outside Paris, while the third, Sirens, depicts the female human-like beings with alluring voices of Greek mythology. Debussy creates an exotic atmosphere by imitating the music of the Balinese gamelan that he had heard at the World Exposition in Paris in 1899. And the sirens are represented by a woman's chorus singing a wordless song. We turn now to perhaps the most famous, notorious, important, and wonderful music of the 20th century, the score to Stravinsky's ballet Le Sacre de Printemps, The Rite of Spring. Premiered on May 29, 1913 in Paris, the first performance caused a near riot between progressives like Debussy, screaming in support of Stravinsky's revolutionary score, and conservatives like Saint-Saëns, yelling in protest. The Rite was Stravinsky's third score for Sergei Diaghilev's Russian ballet season in Paris. Completely unknown before 1911, Stravinsky had scored international success with his previous two ballets, The Firebird and Petrushka. Brilliant and original as those scores are, nothing prepared the public for the onslaught of elemental violence, dissonance, and wild rhythmical complexity he unleashed in The Rite of Spring. Stravinsky claimed the idea for a ballet based on pagan Russia came to him in a dream. Later, feeding the myth of the piece's greatness, he said, "I am the vessel through which the rite passed," as if the music already existed somewhere else, and he merely wrote it down. After his dream, Stravinsky consulted Nicholas Roerich, the leading expert of the time on prehistoric Russia. They came up with a scenario based on the arrival of spring in Russia. The ancient peoples worshipped the gods of spring, since the season brought life to the frozen landscape. It's hard for us in Florida to imagine the arrival of spring as a dramatic event, but things are quite different in cold climates. I remember when I lived in Minneapolis, there was a point each year towards the end of winter when the ice would begin to thaw, and you would hear loud cracking sounds all around as ice fell off the trees, releasing nature from its grip. Roads became dangerous and sidewalks treacherous. Spring's arrival was not gentle and pleasant. It was noisy and menacing, a huge surge of elemental recreative power. Rurich and Stravinsky came up with a scenario in two parts. In the first, the adoration of the earth, the ancient peoples worshipped the gods of spring. In the second, the sacrifice, a virgin is chosen from among the tribe and is glorified by the elders. Then, in a sacrifice of thanksgiving to spring, she must dance herself to death. Part 1 begins with a solo bassoon playing an extremely high melody, loosely based on a Lithuanian folk song, but sounding like a wild animal awakening from hibernation. The celebration of spring begins in the hills. An old woman enters and begins to foretell the future. The sounds are unlike anything we have heard in Western music before. Stravinsky achieves this by piling familiar chords on top of each other so that they sound new. In addition, the rhythm of the music is highly irregular. If we think of music up to this point, most of it is in a single time signature. That is, a particular movement has 3 or 4 beats in a bar, and it repeats the same pattern over and over again. We know where we stand musically because the patterns are familiar and they repeat. But Stravinsky breaks those patterns, rapidly alternating the meter bar to bar, creating a disorientating effect. He was emancipating rhythm from the chains of regularity, if you like. A holy procession leads to the entry of the wise elders, headed by the sage, who brings the games to a pause and blesses the earth. The people break into a passionate dance, sanctifying and becoming one with the earth. The music is wild, almost drunk on the passion of ritual, the full power of the modern symphony orchestra at its beck and call. Part 2 begins. Night has fallen, and an ominous atmosphere prevails. The young girls engage in mysterious games, walking in circles. One of them is selected by fate, being twice caught in the perpetual circle, and is honored as the chosen one with a forceful dance. The chosen one is entrusted to the care of the old wise men. Finally, she begins her dance, dancing herself to death in their presence, in the great sacrificial dance. The music of this last part is again unlike anything we have heard before. Stravinsky claimed that this music came to him in his dream, but its rhythms were so wild and unusual that he didn't know how to write them down. Notoriously difficult to play and very unstable, the music conjures images of the young girl throwing herself around the elemental landscape in a wild frenzy before collapsing dead. Spring has been appeased. These concerts will also feature the world premiere of a new piece by our artist-in-residence Conrad Tao, who will be both composer and performer. We can't wait to share this new piece with you, and we can't wait to see you at Jacoby Symphony Hall.